This is a discussion then in the small scope of how things don't exist and how things do exist. These two things, this is all you need to know, really, in order to have everything that you want in your life. Just these two things. It's very simple. How things don't exist and how they do exist. How things don't exist. Anybody ever seen this one? No. Have you seen it 3,000 times yet? What is this? Okay. What color is this? This is, what we need to do to understand how easy it was to come up with that statement, that answer to what is this question. We need to just look behind the scenes a little bit. First of all, we naturally believe that we're talking again about how things don't exist. We believe that the qualities, the most basic of these qualities, let's just say, is its color. We can all agree, unless there's somebody who's not a human being or who doesn't see color, we can all agree that this is black, right? But even that, that this is black, the blackness does not reside in the object. And it's really helpful to just do a little reading in color theory to understand that. So there's this body of cognitive scientists called second-generation cognitive scientists now that use color theory to actually refute the teachings of what the first generation of cognitive scientists. So they're having this debate. And first-generation cognitive scientists have this model of the brain that it's a computer, basically. So strong artificial intelligence is the way that our mind actually operates. And so it's possible for a computer to be conscious, is what this first generation of cognitive scientists say. And then the whole goal of this computational model is to have an accurate representation inside, at the end of these computations, of something that actually does exist objectively outside of the perceiving computer. The second generation calls that simple-minded realism. And I think that is a beautiful term. And they use this color theory then to refute this simple-minded realism. They say the color doesn't reside in the pen, in this object. Color actually is an experience at the end of this long, long, long chain, beginning with light reflected off a surface, etc. And then they go on to really describe in great detail how the surface reflectance of this object is a constant, but actually the wavelength of rays that are reflected off it is extremely variable. It depends on the light source primarily. So whether you have daylight, cool daylight, warm daylight, whether it's tungsten light, whether it's fluorescent light, which is why you have a white balance on your camera, right, to adjust for that. Because our human eye does the adjusting for the camera in this case. All of these different light sources are perceived as essentially the same color to our human eye. So, it becomes this, the retina receives this very small spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. There are X-rays, there are radio waves, gamma rays, very small spectrum within all of electromagnetic radiation then is what we call this visible spectrum. We happen to have evolved these sensors to perceive this narrow band of electromagnetic radiation. It gets turned into electrical impulses in our retina then. And then the optic nerve carries those, and along the way transfers, at every synapse, transfers that into a chemical reaction. Somehow at the end of that then, we perceive black. So everybody can agree that the qualities that we perceive in an object, as exemplified by color theory, don't actually reside in the object. Well, again, we're just trying to understand what it is that, how we can say this is a pen. What is it then? Maybe it's the qualities or the function then. that really resides in the pen. You know, maybe it's the fact that it's a writing instrument, you know, its function that really makes this a pen. Well, and that if that were the case, then every being would agree that on the function, the real purpose of this thing. So, you know, if a dog walked into this room, they would start chewing on it because the function for them is something to polish their teeth. You know, it's something, you know, it's not a writing instrument. Or somebody who, an Inuit Eskimo from the previous generation who's never seen this particular shape and stylus, you know, would not think of it as a writing instrument. It would be something like in The Gods Must Be Crazy. Remember that movie? A Coke bottle is thrown out an airplane window. These Aboriginal pygmies in Africa find it, and because they have no idea what this thing is, it has a completely different function for them. I can't remember what it is, but it becomes this object of worship, I think, or something. I don't know. It becomes this legendary thing for them. So, because these qualities don't reside in the object, neither the physical qualities, the most basic being color, or its function. These are things that are imputed. You know, it's a relationship. So all of these things that we see as objects, as things, are actually events. They're a relationship. So it's a lot more accurate to think of all of our perception, not as that we are getting an accurate representation of things out there, but that these are, all of the acts of our perception are actually events. It's a relationship that occurs between something out there and our perceiving apparatus, our sense powers. Now, if this is the case, and so in an essence then, the essence is that this object could be anything. It's available, it has potential, right, in Geshe-Michael's terms. It means that it is empty of having a penness of its own, that's just broadcasting its own penness. So it's available to be anything. It has a potential to be anything. And if then everything could be anything, we can just generalize them now to say, let's just assume then that it's the same with every other object in the world. There's not something really unique about this pen. But every other object that we perceive also is available to be anything. Why then do we perceive it as one thing rather than another? That's the question that we really need to answer. Emptiness is cool. You know, it's really cool how things don't exist. But it's not going to lead us to enlightenment, honestly. Except in the way that the concept of enlightenment, the direct yogic perception, of emptiness. The direct yogic perception is a different story, but the concept of emptiness is cool. And this is what was so unique about Geshe-Michael. For 30 days I studied karma and emptiness at Kopan Monastery. And we would have, in our discussion groups afterwards, we'd say, well, that's really cool. But I don't quite get why this is so revolutionary, because this is the foundation of quantum physics and, and modern psychology. Jung in 1930s was talking about, in analytical psychology, the projection, that of our unconscious, basically, onto other people. So what's so radical about this? Geshe-Michael was the first one that I ever heard say, this is something that you are intended to experience. It's not just a concept. This is a direct yogic perception of non-duality. So that's cool. So the concepts of emptiness are cool. But where it really becomes life-changing then is in its application of how things do exist. So emptiness is how things don't exist. How things do exist is where we can really change our lives then. How do things really exist? Things exist as a mental image that is being forced upon me for some reason. That's how things do exist. They exist as a mental image. And it is so amazing this is dependent origination in Mahayana terms. So we've got emptiness then and dependent origination. Emptiness is the way things don't exist. It's always talked about as an absence, as a negative thing. The way things do exist is described as a positive thing. The things do exist as a mental image that's being forced upon me for some reason. And then we have to try to understand, whoa, what is the reason that... So, is this mental image then a choice? Is this a voluntary thing? Can I choose to have a $1,000 bill in my pocket right now? I'm going to check. Can I choose at this moment that my friend who I live with be free of prostate cancer? Can I choose to be all of a sudden have this scar removed from my cheek? Something like that. No, I can't. If I could, then we wouldn't have to go any further in the Lam Rim. We could all go home now, and you guys could be doing something else with this beautiful sunny afternoon in Manhattan. But the thing is that for some reason, why this mental image, everything could be anything, but it's not a choice. The mental imprint or the mental image that I'm seeing here, we all answered pen, not chew toy. There's some reason that one mental image rather than another is ripening. So what is that? That's then karma. Right? So in this system, it's the reason that one thing that I'm forced to see, one mental image rather than another, that I overlay on a particular object, is because of karma. And then the most important karma, so there are neutral karmas and things like that, that your teachers will tell you about. But the most important karma that we need to focus on is things that we have done, thought, or said to other people. Because these are the powerful karmas. These are the ones that determine whether we're happy or unhappy, whether it's a pleasant or unpleasant experience. This pen, it's not a neutral experience for me because every time I look at this pen, it's a very pleasant experience because a dear friend of this gave me this pen to sign books with. It's a very pleasant thing. Why is that? The only answer, according to karmic theory, is that I gave pens to somebody else, or I somehow gave something that other people needed, something instrumental to fulfill some goal of theirs.